Welcome back to News Beats. Now, Ghana has failed to strike a deal with two bondholder groups to restructure $13 billion of international bonds, the government said on Monday, dealing a blow to its effort to swiftly emerge from the difficult and economic crisis. Now, talks were derailed for now amid indications from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, that the deal would not befit its debt sustainability parameters, which set out how much debt it thinks a country can afford, and government said in a statement. Now, Ghana had been in formal talks with two groups holding its international bonds since March 16, one international group of Western Asset Management and hedge funds, and another one including regional African banks. The Regional African Bondholder Group had also rejected part of the proposed rework, including a par option to retain the original value of bonds with a longer maturity and lower coupon. In December 2022, Ghana, in the world's second biggest cocoa producer, defaulted on most of its external debt of $30 billion after debt cost and inflation surged when it was locked out of the international markets. Now we're joined by Joe Jackson, who is the Chief Executive Officer for Deluxe Finance, for more on this. Joe Jackson, thank you for your time. You're welcome. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your listeners and viewers.
Right, we're grateful.
Even though this news has been, it's quite a bad blow to us. On Friday, we were celebrating the fact that we had reached staff level agreement, and this was going to open up another 360 million to our economy to help stabilize the city. But it was always going to be contingent on reaching agreement with the external bondholders. And then we wake up this morning to find a report from CNBC Africa that that agreement did not come on. And that as we stand, we haven't had a formal statement from the IMF yet. We haven't had a formal statement from the Ministry of Finance yet. This seems like a bitter blow. And I bet behind the scenes, there's a lot of scurrying around to try and get them back to the table and back to an agreement. We needed this agreement. We needed the 360 million from the IMF, which was contingent on this agreement. The city needs this. As Ghanaians, we all need this.
Who exactly is not communicating rightly to Ghanaians? Is it the government or those fronting for government or the IMF? Because on one breath, we have the macroeconomic indicators are improving. And if they are improving, I expect that when we apply for bonds, we should make some positive waves, not so?
No, unfortunately, they're two very completely different matters. On one hand, the macroeconomic indicators, the broad indicators for the economy, are trending in the right direction. On the other hand, the people that we owe, that we borrowed from on the Eurobond market, that we haven't paid since the 18th of December last year, are saying the agreement that you're offering us it stretches the payments for too long. The haircut, the reduction in interest is too high, and we won't sign this agreement. Now, remember that regardless of wherever our macroeconomic factors are trending, the IMF said clearly in its statement that we needed to be sure that we sign that agreement with the external bondholders. And that hasn't happened. So, there was a condition contingent for which we, according to the CNBC report, we have failed. So that is the problem. And it's not a matter of anybody not communicating properly. I believe everybody is communicating as best as they can. the IMF and the Ministry of Finance, but this is just a different matter for which they have failed to get agreement.
For the purpose of education, the condition precedent, what exactly was it?
Condition precedent said Ghana needs to get an agreement with the people that it borrowed from on the Eurobond market.
Right.
In dollars.
Right.
Out there, the foreigners it borrowed from.
Right.
We needed to get an agreement so that the IMF could be sure that in the months and years ahead, we will be able to pay off our debts. That is what they call debt sustainability.
Yeah.
Now, that condition was a requirement for the release of the next tranche of money. And we haven't been able to reach agreement.
Joe Jackson, what exactly do we do now going forward? We're not sure since we failed with the condition precedent. And what do we do with those we're owing? And how is the IMF going to handle the situation now? Because I think over the weekend, we felt that we were having some positive news until this morning, like you said. We saw this. So what do we do? Is that going to bring us back to our knees, or what exactly is going to happen?
Not yet. Not yet. What we have to do is immediately, with the help of the IMF, get the others back in the room to negotiate and maybe revise the terms. Don't know how easy it is to revise the terms.
But we've been with the IMF the whole time, trying to help us, still gain some confidence from the international markets. And it doesn't seem it's working. Some countries have come in, and all that. It doesn't seem it's working.
Let me tell you what the issue is. The better the terms we get, the bit more room we have to spend locally. And I suspect strongly that this being an election year, this being a year where infrastructure issues and who has built what and performance trackers and the like are going to come into play. We were negotiating a deal that will give us some room to spend a little bit more. Unfortunately, I don't think our creditors are going to agree to that.
Right.
So it's time to go back to the drawing board and say to them, we are prepared to give up more. We are prepared to sacrifice more. Let's get an agreement going. It may ultimately mean that some of the things that we want to do in an election year won't come on. Because remember that the IMF also is clear. We will not be allowed to spend over budget. So literally, we are between the rock and a very hard place. The hard place being our desire to spend during an election year.
Joe Jackson, we'll leave you here. Thank you for your time. We definitely will do some more discussion on this subsequently on other programs. Thank you for your time. Joe Jackson is the Chief Executive Officer for Delex Finance, and that's what we are faced with, working with the international creditors.